For this to be the first move that Matt Ryan made.
Come on, man.
What they said at Home Alone, what the mama say? Kevin! I said, wait, what? Kevin! Kevin Stefanski? What? We seen what you did with the good brother, Shedeur.
The Atlanta Falcons are suddenly at the center of a heated NFL debate. Cam Newton recently criticized Kevin Stefanski's music approach to handling young quarterbacks. His comments sparked questions about the team's future, with Michael Penix Jr. Newton warned that Penix could face the same type of situation Shedeur Sanders once dealt with. Music. Now the discussion is growing across the league. It's no longer just about one player. It's about music, trust, development, and Atlanta's long-term plan.
A member of the culture. And you landed in the most culturist of culture. It ain't no blacker division than the NFC South. You got Atlanta, Carolina, and New Orleans. That's the blackest division in all of football. They say,
hold on. We can't scatter y'all out. We gotta put y'all all in one.
The NFC South is the HBCU of NFL football.
Oh, very.
Swag me after the Billy go right there.
Cam Newton is not known for quiet opinions, especially when it comes to music, quarterback development in the NFL. So when he spoke about Kevin Stefanski and the situation unfolding in Atlanta, people immediately paid attention. Newton's criticism, music, wasn't just about play calling or offensive schemes. His concern centered on how young quarterbacks are handled when they enter music, complex NFL systems. According to Newton, the issue goes beyond individual players. It's about patterns. When music, he referenced Shedeur Sanders and suggested Michael Penix Jr. could face the same type of situation. He was pointing toward a broader conversation about coaching philosophy. In Newton's view, young quarterbacks need stability, belief, and patience, music, from the organizations that invest in them.
Even though Dallas got some black people, the Dallas Cowboys is a corporate team. Hey. Oh, whoa. We ain't doing all that. Yellow Beezy and Charleston White and them, hey, put them in the upper deck. But down here in the corporate suites, y'all just stand up over there by that little area where we got designated for y'all.
See why y'all just stand up over there by that little area where we got designated for y'all. The concern he raised was simple, but music, powerful. If a coach already has doubts about a young quarterback, music, those doubts can shape the entire environment around that player. Every interception becomes magnified. Music, every slow start becomes proof of something larger. Suddenly, development turns music into scrutiny. Newton also questioned whether Stefanski's past situations with quarterbacks, music, truly showed consistent growth. During his time in Cleveland, the Browns rotated through multiple quarterbacks over several seasons. Some of those music changes were caused by injuries or roster decisions, but the instability still became part of the narrative surrounding the coaching staff.
Robert, RG3, has a point. There's also some truth to what Coach Stefanski is doing. I'm gonna make my point there, then I'm gonna come back. Coach Stefanski knows that it's going to take time.
That's true.
You have to have grace with growth. When you have a situation that you have in Cleveland where you traded your veteran quarterback, now you're forced to be in this situation where you have to be patient. Once again, have grace with growth.
By bringing that history into the conversation, Newton wasn't simply criticizing one decision. He was asking whether the Atlanta might be inviting similar instability. His comments quickly spread across sports media because they touched on something bigger than the Falcons around the league. Teams constantly struggle, music, with how to balance patience and urgency when developing young quarterbacks. By bringing that history into the conversation, Newton wasn't simply criticizing one decision. He was asking whether the Atlanta might be inviting similar instability. His comments quickly spread across sports media because they touched on something bigger than the Falcons around the league. Teams constantly struggle, music, with how to balance patience and urgency when developing young quarterbacks.
Coach Stefanski knows that the worst thing that you could do is alter a person's confidence by putting that person on a short leash.
Oh.
What he's trying to do is give all grace to say, hey, this is your team. This is your job to lose, right?
Newton's warning essentially asked one music question. If the Falcons have already chosen their future quarterback, Why risk sending mixed signals before that future even begins? That question is what turned a normal football discussion into a full-blown, league-wide debate. Music for the Atlanta Falcons, Michael Penix Jr. is more than just another quarterback prospect. He represents a long-term investment and a vision for where the franchise wants to go. When teams select a young quarterback and publicly connect their future to him, that decision carries significant weight throughout the organization. Here's my question to Coach Stefanski.
How long are you willing to wait? Because if we keep losing games, what are we really doing?
Yeah.
Because for sake of conversation, it ain't like Shedeur Sanders or Bailey Zappi can do any worse. Y'all still losing.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks define eras in the NFL. They shape offensive identity, locker room culture, and the overall trajectory of a team. That's why Atlanta's commitment to Penn matters so much in this conversation. The Falcons built their roster with youth and potential in mind. Players like Drake London, Kyle, Music, Pitts, and Bijan Robinson form the core of an offense designed to grow together over several seasons. Music, Penix fits directly into that timeline. His development is supposed to happen alongside the development of the rest of the Music roster. That approach requires patience. Young quarterbacks rarely arrive in the NFL, Music fully polished. They must adjust to faster defenses, more complex Music schemes, and the intense pressure that comes with leading a professional team. Atlanta's plan, Music, seemed clear from the beginning. Allow Penn to grow within a system that supports Music, his strengths, while the roster matures around him. But that plan becomes fragile if leadership begins sending conflicting signals. If the head coach hints at wanting a different quarterback profile or suggests exploring alternatives, it can create uncertainty around the player the organization has already invested in. Music, in the NFL, perception matters almost as much as performance. When fans and players sense hesitation from leadership, confidence, Music can erode quickly. That's why Penix has become the center of this debate. The question isn't just whether he will succeed. The question is whether the Falcons' Music will fully commit to giving him the time and support necessary to succeed, because once a franchise ties Music, its future, to a quarterback, consistency becomes essential. The phrase Shedeur Treatment has become a shorthand for a larger concern about how young quarterbacks are evaluated and supported in the NFL. When Cam Newton referenced Shedeur Sanders in his criticism of Kevin Stefanski, he was highlighting a pattern that many fans believe exists across the league. The pattern often begins the same Music way. A young quarterback enters the league with excitement and expectations. The franchise promotes him as the future, the player who will guide the team into the next era. But when early struggles appear, and they almost always do, the narrative shifts quickly. Instead of focusing on Music development, the conversation moves toward doubt. Suddenly, every mistake becomes evidence that the quarterback may not be ready. Analysts question decision-making. Fans debate maturity. Media discussions shift from Music potential to pressure. Meanwhile, the environment around the quarterback sometimes receives far less scrutiny. Offensive line protection, play calling adjustments, and roster balance often play huge roles in a young quarterback's early struggles. Yet, those factors rarely dominate the headlines.
Sooner or later,
they're going to have to really realize, like, hold on, dog.
We just got to see what we got in the locker room.
And then this is another thing. You going to go in the draft?
I can.
You got, what, projected? You got Dante Moore? Ty Simpson? Gunnar Stockton? Archibald? Huh? It ain't no strong quarterbacks that's making a case to be the number one guy.
Newton's argument was that this Music pattern can place unfair pressure on young players before they have time to grow. Music, when he warned that Michael Penix Jr. might face the same treatment, he was essentially asking Atlanta to Music avoid repeating that cycle. If the Falcons publicly commit to developing Penn, that commitment must remain strong when adversity inevitably Music appears. Otherwise, the message becomes inconsistent. Players sense Music that inconsistency quickly. Confidence is one of the most important factors in quarterback Music development. When belief from leadership appears conditional, it can affect performance as much as any music defensive scheme. That is why the comparison to Shedeur Sanders sparked so much attention. It wasn't just about one quarterback or one coach. Music. It was about how the NFL handles the fragile process of turning young talent into long-term franchise leaders. What makes the Falcons situation so interesting is that the tension does not appear to be about talent. Atlanta's roster is widely viewed as one of the most promising young groups in the league. With players like Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson, the offensive foundation already exists. The expectation was that Michael Penix Jr. would grow alongside music, this core, and eventually lead the next era of Falcons football. But tension begins when different voices inside a franchise view music, the timeline differently. Reports and speculation suggest that Kevin Stefanski may not be fully aligned with a quarterback plan, music, that was already in place before his arrival. That does not necessarily mean he dislikes Penn as a player. Coaches often evaluate systems differently and prefer quarterbacks who fit specific offensive styles. However, even the perception of hesitation can create pressure inside an NFL building. When a head coach appears to question the long-term quarterback plan, it sends signals throughout the organization. Music, players hear it, assistants discuss it, front office staff begin weighing possibilities. Suddenly, a development project turns music into a debate. That debate can affect confidence, especially for a young quarterback who is still learning how to lead a professional team. The Falcons' music now face a delicate moment. If they fully commit to Penix, they reinforce stability, music, and belief in their long-term plan. If the conversation continues to shift toward alternatives, the narrative becomes one of uncertainty. Music. In the NFL, uncertainty rarely stays quiet. It spreads quickly through media coverage and locker room conversations. That is why this situation has grown beyond a normal roster discussion. It has become a test of alignment between coaching philosophy, front office vision, and the organization's commitment to its young quarterback. Arthur Blank has spent years shaping the direction of the franchise. Owners rarely involve themselves in day-to-day football decisions, but they play a critical role in defining long-term vision. When Music Blank invests in a particular strategy, that decision reflects the identity he wants the organization to represent. The Falcons' current direction has been built around patience and development. Music, instead of chasing short-term solutions, the team is focused on assembling young talent, music, that can grow together over multiple seasons. Michael Penix Jr. fits perfectly into that approach. Music, when a franchise selects a young quarterback and presents him as the future, it sends the message to the entire organization. Coaches, players, and fans begin aligning their expectations around that timeline. But the arrival of a new head coach can complicate that vision. Coaches naturally want to shape teams according to their philosophies. Music, they evaluate players differently and sometimes prefer different systems or leadership styles at the quarterback position. That's a normal part of the NFL. The challenge comes when those preferences appear to conflict with the organization's previously established plan. If Arthur Blank remains committed to developing Penn, then the coaching staff must align with that decision. If the coaching staff pushes Music strongly for a different direction, leadership must determine which path defines the franchise's future. Moments like this reveal how power structures function inside NFL organizations. Ultimately, the owner's vision tends to set the tone. The Falcons now face a choice between reinforcing their original plan or adjusting Music, their approach based on the new coaching perspective. Quarterbacks shape more than the offense. They influence a team's identity, music, and how it's viewed across the league. When a franchise commits to a young quarterback, Music, everyone rallies behind that vision. But once doubts appear, pressure rises quickly. Atlanta now faces that Music moment, deciding whether to fully support Michael Penix Jr. or risk creating uncertainty.